Hi guys, my name is Matti Sulanto and I'm a photographer. Welcome to another video. This time I'm in Bangkok, Thailand. In this video I'm going to share some urban area nighttime shooting tips. I'm waving my GR3X here, but these tips will work with every camera. No worries if you have a GR3 or full-frame Sony camera or APS-C Nikon camera. Any camera will work with these tips. But without any further ado, let's get started. Especially windows can offer you some really interesting, intriguing compositions because you can see the reflection on the window, but you can also see the scene that is behind the window. And by combining these two scenes together in your picture, you can create almost mind-boggling compositions if you get it right. Those two images, the reflection on the window and the scene behind the window, are usually in different scale and in different perspective, and that can create some truly interesting compositions, and I highly encourage you to explore and experiment with that. Mixed light sources. In a big city, there can be so many different types of light sources, LED lights, neon lights, tungsten lights, and all kinds of colored lights. And when you combine these light sources in one picture, you can create something really interesting. And these different types of light sources can transform a boring nighttime scene to something really interesting and almost magical. And if you shoot RAW, and by the way, you should always shoot RAW no matter what you shoot. But anyway, if you shoot RAW, you can enhance or fine-tune those different types of light sources or different colors in post by changing the white balance or fine-tuning each individual color. And that is what I highly recommend. And changing the white balance alone can make a big difference. So it's definitely worth exploring. Make motion blur work for you. Select a longish shutter speed and follow your subject by panning. And you can create some sense of action or motion. But you can also hold your camera still and let some elements in your scene move around. Sharp and unsharp in the same photo always looks so awesome, and I think you should embrace that in your nighttime urban handheld photos. But sometimes also a blurry picture can work really well. There is no need for any sharp points or areas in the shot, and I don't think you should be too worried about blurriness in your shots. A blurry picture can also tell a story. Practice and experiment with different shutter speeds and see what kind of results you get. For panning shots in a city, I recommend you to start with 1/30th of a second. It's a good shutter speed and it's usually enough to create enough sense of motion. But slower shutter speeds, of course, can enhance the sense of motion or speed in the picture, but it's also a lot more difficult to use a long shutter speed. So start with the 1/30th of a second, and sometimes you may have to go a little bit faster, like 1/60th of a second, but sometimes 1/15th of a second may also work. But it's always important to experiment and see for yourself so you can get sort of the feel of it. As always in photography, look for light. And the big upside in nighttime urban photography is that once you find your perfect light, it usually does not change because it's all artificial light. Windows, shop windows and big billboards can give you this enormous soft light, and it's usually quite bright too, no need to go high ISO. Also street lights or even car headlights can work really well, and they can offer you some truly dramatic, fantastic looking light. remember also that street level is not your only option for urban nighttime photos. Especially if you travel, you probably stay in a hotel or Airbnb, and some of those can offer you really fantastic views if there is a balcony or a window that you can open. And the other night, for example, I shot these pictures from my Airbnb balcony, and I think they look really fantastic. They are almost like from a movie or something. In a big city like Bangkok or any other big city, there's usually quite a lot of light even during the night, because there are so many big billboards and big shop windows and other bright light sources. And usually it's not necessary to use high ISO values at all. But even if you have to use high ISO values, don't be afraid of that, because first of all, your camera is probably better than you think. And if you want to get rid of the noise, then you can always use some of the very excellent noise reduction applications, like for example DxO Pure Raw 4. And I'm gonna put a link for that, an affiliate link, just in case you are not aware of that application. It's one of the best to get rid of high ISO noise. So please use the link down below if you want to try it. There's a free trial, or if you want to buy it and start using it. Urban nighttime photography can be quite rewarding because everything looks so different when the darkness falls. Even a mundane, even boring daytime scene can look quite dramatic and interesting during the night. And of course, it's always a challenge to capture masterpieces, but I think during the night it's relatively easy to capture good enough pictures to give you that a lot of noise here, to give you that sense of success and satisfaction. And it's so much nicer to continue exploring and experimenting if you occasionally get that feeling that you succeeded at least a little bit, and you feel that you are not stuck, or you are not succeeding at all. In my opinion, there are no secret technical tricks to nighttime urban photography. As long as you understand how the light works, and as long as you understand that the contrast can be quite high. The brightest part of the picture, the highlight, the light source, whether it's a billboard or a shop window or something else, can be really a lot brighter than the deepest shadow in the picture, probably like 64 stops difference between the brightest highlight and the deepest shadow. And because of that, sometimes you have to make compromises. You have to decide whether you want highlight detail or shadow detail. As a general rule, I would say it's a good idea to protect those highlights and not blow them out. It doesn't usually look very good if you have a lot of bright white, totally blown out highlights in your picture, especially if they play a big part in your shot. Sometimes if you have a lot of darkness in your picture, a lot of shadow areas, and there are just some couple of tiny highlights, then it's okay if they are blown out because they are only tiny spots in the picture. But usually, as a general rule, I would say protect those highlights and use your exposure compensation or whatever exposure method you prefer to make sure you are not blowing out those highlights. And then some lens recommendations for nighttime urban photography. My personal favorite for all photography is a 40mm full frame lens or something equivalent. However, for nighttime photography, a wide angle is easier to handhold for long shutter speeds. But a standard lens or a short telephoto lens can be easier angle of view to compose your shots. But if you already have a favorite lens or favorite focal length, I recommend you start exploring nighttime urban photography with your favorite lens, whatever that lens is. Because you're already familiar with that lens, with that angle of view, you will probably get the best results with that lens. These were my tips and ideas for nighttime urban photography. I hope this gave you some inspiration for your next nighttime outing. If this was helpful, please do consider buying me a cup of coffee. There's a link down below for that. If you don't live in Finland, thank you so much, and I'll definitely see you soon in the next one.